All right, so welcome everybody to our Leader 101 session. So just to sort of level set here that you are now the leader of a giving circle in your community or within your profession or maybe a cause area you really care about. And being a leader of a giving circle is really an opportunity to network, to give back, and support the causes and organizations you care about. So these are all the photos that you see here are all different groups, just like yours, running their group. And hopefully seeing stuff in images will help also connect some of the dots as well. So this is just a quick video on being a leader that I just want to play quickly. It's just about a minute. But if anyone has any issues hearing it at all, just let me know. Here we go.
I'm not hearing anything.
No.
Industry for sustainability.
You're not hearing
Oh, there we
it.
go.
Oh, you are hearing? Okay. Let me go.
We're good now.
You're good. Okay, here we go.
Hi, I'm Linda Bishop, and I am on the leadership team of the Corpus Christi Professional Women for Good.
My name is Zenaida Cranford. I am one of 4 leadership members for our Fayetteville, North Carolina Giving Circle.
What I like most about being a co-leader of this group is that you're instantly put in touch with several other strangers that you've never met with completely different skill sets. And you're able to utilize all those skill sets in a collective, harmonized way to a collective shared mission.
My biggest piece of advice to anybody who is considering joining your leadership team is just go ahead and step forward and do that. Understanding that it actually doesn't take as much time as what I thought it might.
As a giving circle leader, you will not only impact your area, your surrounding communities, you will also grow in skills that will help you personally and professionally.
I would say if you're scared, don't be, just go ahead and try it.
So good luck, and I hope you'll step forward.
So that's just a bit of from some of our leaders, just sharing a bit about their experience of what kind of being a Giving Circle leader has meant to them and sort of the process. So hopefully that gave you just like a little bit of a foundation of what being a leader is all about. So just to talk about the goals of our time together here today. So I just want to remind everyone what a Giving Circle is. As a leader of your group, you might be asked this. So I just think it's always good to sort of clarify that and level set around that. And then who we are as Grapevine, what we're kind of responsible for and what you're responsible for as a leader, why you're a leader of your Giving Circle in the first place, what the sort of purpose of your role and the expectations are, and then how to successfully lead your group. So what is a Giving Circle? So a Giving Circle is all of these things. It is a group of like-minded people coming together to pool their donations to give back collectively so they can make a bigger impact for a nonprofit. So these are all different Giving Circles using Grapevine. We've got some that are virtual groups. You can see those in the top left. We've got a lot of location-based groups here, but this is what a Giving Circle is. And the groups that you are leading are all kind of based on this very popular model of Giving Circles. So we did not invent Giving Circles at Grapevine. They've been around for many, many decades and many centuries, dating back in lots of other cultures. But this is a very, very popular model that we've based our work off of with you. So the idea being that you try and get 100 people together contributing $100. Some of our groups are 100, some of them are 50, some of them are 25, but most of them are $100. Then members nominate nonprofits for consideration by the group. Then members vote on the nonprofit recipient with the goal of having a $10,000 check to give away each quarter to a nonprofit. And then you repeat that each quarter. So the idea being that this isn't a one-time campaign. This is continuous support and engagement with your community and the nonprofits you care about. Some of our groups will have 5 people, some will have 600 people. They don't necessarily all have to have 100, that's really just a goal for your group so that you're able to have that $10,000 check each quarter. We find that giving circles tend to support smaller, more grassroots organizations, and $10,000 can go a huge way for those organizations. So that's kind of why we try and make that a main goal of all of our groups. I just want to pause there before we get a little bit more into the collective giving movement. Any questions at all bubbling up at all for anyone?
I have a quick question. I know in our group we were talking about nominating different nonprofits, but like you mentioned, it's good to give back to those that are probably smaller, so it makes more of an impact. But I guess, how do you know which charities would benefit the most by our donations?
Yeah, that's a great question, Natalie. A lot of groups will do exactly that. They'll decide that, you know what, members can only nominate nonprofits that have less than a 100K budget or less than a 50K budget, whatever it is. I will share some resources afterwards where you can search by, they're free, it's a free database, a couple options where you can search by location, by the budget of the nonprofits. There's some great tools that you can utilize and you can share with your members as well to find these organizations. And these databases, for anyone who on this call is a nonprofit as well, this list is really helpful for you to submit your nonprofit to as well, because giving circles really do rely on these tools to be able to find organizations that really fit their group's mission and criteria.
Great, thank you.
Definitely. Anything else before we move forward? All right. So giving circles really fit into this broader collective giving movement. So as I mentioned, we did not start giving circles here at Grapevine. The sort of iteration of the term giving circles really came about in the United States in the 1980s, and we've seen it steadily increasing, started by groups of women in their community saying, you know what, I really want to give back, but I don't have a lot of money and I don't know all the issues happening, but maybe if we come together, we can make a bigger impact collectively. And since then, we've seen, and this research is 5 years old, actually. So we expect these numbers to be a lot higher right now, and we're working on some updated research. But you know, over $1.3 billion has been moved because of giving circles, over 2,500 in the United States, and over 150,000 people engaged. So just know your giving circle that you're working on in your community or your specific area is really part of this bigger grassroots movement that is instrumental in moving funds, especially to those smaller organizations. So just want to kind of focus on the middle number here as an example, but just really want to outline why your leadership is so important and why your giving circle is so critical, because what we know is that it really matters who gives. So these numbers here represent sort of the larger philanthropic ecosystem in the United States. And for example, less than 2% of all of that funding goes to women and girls causes. So, you know, quite a low number. But what we know is that giving circles, based on the last research as of 5 years ago, were made up of 70% women. And women and girls causes were one of the top 3 most funded areas. So you can see when you're bringing your lived experience to where you give, that is really able to shift how that money is moved. Okay, so who are we as Grapevine and why are we involved? Why have I been in contact with all of you? So we are a team of fundraisers, community builders, engineers who have come together to essentially build a free platform for giving circles to support the infrastructure of their work. Our founder, Emily, realized that there was no tool set up specifically for giving circles. So she started to build this platform with some engineers. And out of that, some of our work has included building a global directory of giving circles where you can easily find a giving circle to join. But then we're also a nonprofit, and a huge part of our mission is to introduce this model to more people and places. So how we've been doing that is kickstarting different giving circles all over the United States and around different cause areas. So all of the groups that you're involved in are all ones that we have kickstarted. So the reason that kind of came into fruition was because what we started to hear through our research were a lot of people were saying, we love this giving circle model, but I don't really want to start a group of my own. That sounds like a lot of work. I'd rather lead a group or be a part of a group that's already in motion. So from that, we started to kickstart all these different groups. And we'll get into sort of that process in a moment, but that's really why you're all involved, because we are trying to launch all these groups, get them started, invite in initial members, and then hand them over to you as members of your community to run them in a way that makes sense for you, in an easier way, because you're not having to sort of start from scratch, right? So that kind of touches upon why you are here. So I've kind of talked about this a little bit, but we start to invite in initial members. We have a small team of people who leverage tools like LinkedIn a lot and publicly available emails to try and find people in specific areas where we're launching groups. And then we reach out to them and we say, do you want to join this group? And if so, do you want to maybe consider being a leader of the group? So it's sort of a bit of a chicken before the egg type of thing, where it's like we start the group and get members in place before we always have leadership team in place. And that's honestly one of the most challenging parts, is sort of bridging that gap. But that's kind of the way we've been doing it and have been finding it to be most successful. But without a leadership team, there really isn't a thriving group. There isn't those opportunities for members to connect. So you are really, really essential to growing the impact of your group and helping to guide it and grow it, especially in those early days. And to date, these are where we're at with our community. So because of all of you, we have moved, since we launched in March 2020, we have moved over $28 million to 3,000 nonprofits, over 3,000. And we actually have, I think it's closer to 1,000 now giving circles on our platform. So those are made up of groups of people who are already part of giving circles and they're just using our tools to help them do their work, our free tools, or they're groups that we have helped to kickstart and launch. And we're in every state right now, so you can kind of see that in that little grid we've got there. Okay, now I'm going to kind of jump a little bit into the different expectations, but I want to make sure I'm not looking over anyone who might have questions. And feel free to drop questions in the chat as well, if that's easier. All right, so now I'm going to jump into what we do as Grapevine. I've sort of talked about this up until this point, but I think it's helpful to clarify some of the things we are doing. So when we launch a group, our team looks at different areas where there aren't giving circles already and where there's an appetite for them. Then what they do is we create the group and we utilize, as I said, tools like LinkedIn, publicly sourced emails, and then we also do advertising on channels like Facebook and Instagram. So likely that's how most of you came to be here as well. Another key thing we do is we provide the platform to help you run your group. So your group's page, collecting donations. We use Stripe. They're a best-in-class payment processor. So you don't have to handle money at all. Essentially how it works is people sign up, they can set up a subscription to be charged quarterly, or they can give a one-off donation each quarter as well. And then Stripe facilitates those payments. We hold it in an account essentially. And then when you tell us what nonprofit should get that funding, we send it over to them. So our accounting team reaches out to that nonprofit and says, hey, you're getting this funding from X giving circle. Do you want it as a check or as a wire transfer? And that's kind of how it works. We also facilitate you collecting nominations, the voting, and also event registrations as well. And then, as I mentioned, we send the funds over to the nonprofit. Also, a key part of our work and my main role is to provide educational programming and support for you as leaders, so you do not feel like you're doing this alone. We do lots of workshops such as this. We do speaker series, one-on-one support, and also we have a peer learning cohort and also a mentorship program. If you're seeing any of those for the first time and you're like, I want to get more involved, or I don't know what this is, please do reach out so I can let you know about all of them. always trying to figure out how to communicate this work a bit better to people. So please do let me know if you want to learn about anything a bit more or you haven't heard about any of this yet. Sorry, they're digging up a tree, so I'm just going to shut that. And then here is really what your role is as a leader. So we often hear members and leaders say, you know what, it's confusing because people don't know, like, are we leading the group or who are you as Grapevine? It feels very confusing. So this is just to clarify. We're the sort of organization helping you to launch all these chapters, but this is really your group to run in a way that makes sense for you. Some groups will say, like, no offense, Grapevine, we don't even mention you. Like, we don't have your logo anywhere, and that's totally fine. But some groups really like to talk about us a lot and mention us a lot, and that's also totally fine. But your main role as a leader is to communicate with members. They get very tired of hearing just from us as Grapevine, and they want to hear from you. So, you know, using our, and we'll look at it in a moment, but creating event posts when you're getting together, letting your members know what is ahead, you know, automatically nominations and voting will open, and we'll look at that in a second. And that means there'll be a post made and people will get emailed that as well. And then they can make their nomination and vote through the platform. But maybe you notice, oh, we haven't gotten a lot of nominations or no one's really voting. You as a leader can remind people, you know, voting is open, you know, participate, have your voice heard, all that kind of stuff. And then really keeping your members posted on the general happenings of your group. So maybe you're just getting started as a leader and you're like, I don't feel ready to organize an event yet. That's okay. You know, let your members know this quarter, it's all going to happen on through the platform. But in the new year, we're going to come together and we're going to meet. Just keeping your members really posted on the planning. And also, as many events as you can kind of get in the calendar ahead and use our event feature for that will be really helpful, because it just means when people log into your page, they'll see under that upcoming event section all the different ways they can engage. And then this is a really key one. The main expectation really is just that you're organizing this one quarterly event for your giving circle, whether that's on Zoom or in person. This is really the cornerstone of the work that you're doing together. Some of our groups will do monthly events. They'll do a volunteer outing with their group every month, or they'll do a happy hour. That's fantastic, and we encourage that. Or we encourage you to have a different member organize that each month, whatever you want. You certainly do not have to do monthly events, but fantastic if you do. But the main thing that you are focused on and sort of the expectation is this quarterly, we call it a gather and grant event. So this is an opportunity for your members to who nominated organizations to share a bit more about the organization with the group so that they're informed when they vote. And then you're in charge of sort of the event logistics and hosting that event. For some groups that are larger, they'll do, you know, they'll get a bigger space because of the size of their group. But I just want to kind of say these can be very, very simple events. It can be just as simple as getting a seat, a table at a patio, or using someone's office space. This is a simple thing that is really an opportunity for your members to connect, to talk about any values you want to highlight as a group. Like Natalie said, maybe you want to decide we're only going to support nonprofits that have less than $100,000 budget, whatever it is. It's also an opportunity to talk about that. And I think the next slide, we've got a quick little example of a gather and grant. I think this is our Seattle group. Oh, you know what? It's later. It's later in slide. So stay posted. But those are the key thing I wanted to call out there was that your real goal there is organizing those quarterly events. So the first thing, sorry, just to go back a minute, to do if you're brand new as a leadership team, you should have received an invitation outlining the role you got assigned based on information you provided us and the other leaders who were selected as well. So your main goal is to organize, your sort of first thing actually is to organize an opportunity for you all to connect as a leadership team. So the purpose there really is to connect with one another, confirm your roles. Maybe you got assigned something you don't really like. Maybe you want to completely rejig what the roles even look like. That's totally fine. We've outlined them just to give you some good structure, but it's certainly not set in stone. And then you want to start that conversation around your group's mission and values. That's a really, really key piece, because once you start that conversation, you can bring that to the group. You can say, you know what, we've noticed in our community that homelessness is a huge issue right now. So we would like to focus our next grant or our next couple grants on organizations supporting that. Or we only want to support nonprofits where there's a woman in leadership. You know, you can really refine that, but starting to have that conversation as a leadership team is really key. And then you want to kind of map out your first gather and grant event, as I mentioned before. And then if you do want to organize any other social events, thinking about that as well. Maybe you want to do just a member mixer to begin, and then do your gather and grant the following, pick those up the following quarter. That's totally fine. But these are the main purposes of what you're meeting about as a leadership team. So these are the roles and responsibilities as we've outlined them, and I'll share this presentation after these link to all the different roles. The key roles really are communications lead. That's someone communicating with your members and also internally with your leaders, having a main sort of point person there, so there's no confusion around who on the leadership team is sort of moving communication forward amongst you. Someone to manage those nonprofits, and then events. And then we have these two roles as well. They're nice to haves. Often, if it's a super small leadership team, we have leadership teams that is one person. We have some that are two people. So often this sort of facilitator will fall into one of these above ones. And then a really nice to have that we don't always have large enough leadership teams for this, but someone really focused on like group engagement and growing the giving circle as well. So these are just some common questions. Who should be initiating that email amongst your leadership team to organize that first touch point, your leader connect? And that is the communications lead. So that person should have been identified when your official invites to be a leader went out. But if you have any confusion, you're not sure who that is, please do reach out to me. My email is here. And then this comes up a lot, unfortunately. What if no leaders respond to me? Maybe you've reached out to people and you're like, no one is getting back to me. What is going on? You know, it's unfortunately sometimes part of this process where the initial leadership team is not who ends up being the leadership team that kind of ends up moving forward. Sometimes people sign up to be a leader, then they get all the information and they're like, I don't know if I have time for this anymore. Or they forgot they signed up for it. There's many different reasons, or life changes. Often people have moved, sometimes have moved, some are completely different. So just know if you're experiencing that, just reach out to me and I will help. It's very common. And just to say, sometimes takes a little bit to get things in place. I think Maria, let me just see if Maria is still on this call. She definitely experienced, it took us a little bit of time to get Maria's leadership team in place. So I don't know, Maria, if you're there, if you want to speak to anything there, but it certainly is part of the process.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, it's been interesting ride. I'm not gonna lie. And I would only recommend that you stick to it. Just try to organize events. Don't give up and keep posting and keep, engaging with everyone. I think, we lead by example. That's, the easiest way to say it. And once you create a momentum, just hold on to it and stay in that horse.
Yeah, thank you, Maria. It's interesting because a lot of groups you'll notice maybe you're not getting engagement, but you're raising a lot of money. Like Maria's group, you've raised almost over $20.
Yeah, we raised $25,000, which was a lot of money. And my biggest concern, or not concern, but I guess I was trying to get everybody's thoughts on like, okay, what do we do with this money? It's a lot of money. Like, we can just give it to one organization. Do we want to split it between 3? Who do we want to help? What do people care about? And it was, it was hard to get people's thoughts and opinions. And I feel like a lot of people feel good just by donating the money, and they think like, okay, I did my job, like I'm helping, let other people figure it out, which is fine. But at the same time, we just need at least a percentage that does care about where the money goes. It's fine. Not everybody has to have a say. It's okay. And I'm fine with it. But as long as you gather a group of people that, can make those choices with you, I think, you really can make a change. So.
Yeah. Thanks, Maria. That's such a good point. Really just getting a core group in place and understanding. We had a workshop yesterday called The Art of Facilitation for some of our leaders. And some people said, yeah, we call them happy check writers, where they don't get involved, but they write a check. And then it's funny, because I'm part of a giving circle here. I'm based in Toronto, and I was like, I'm a happy check writer. I never go to the meetings, but I'd never really thought about that. But I feel very engaged in my giving circle, but I don't attend stuff always. So just to know that you will have some super engaged people, and you're always going to have people just donating who you might never hear from. And, that's okay. That's their way of contributing. But I do think without a bit of an engaged group, yeah, as Maria says, then you can't really decide where those funds go. So you do need to cultivate a bit of a small group there. So this is just a bit of a breakdown of on all of your pages under upcoming events. So just to give you a bit of a rundown, you'll see this is just an example group, but the nonprofit nominations, those will open up. They'll be open for about a month. Then there is a week gap between nominations being open and the voting posts that will go live. The reason there is that week gap is because as leaders, you have that week to remove any nonprofit nominations that you want to. So maybe you're like, ooh, this person nominated one in a completely different state that doesn't fit our group at all. Or maybe, oh wow, we got 15 nominations. We only want 3 to be voted on and presented at our gathering grant. So maybe you'll randomly select 3, or you'll have all the members rank vote them to get the top 3. So as a leader, that is a key sort of part of your role, and really that person managing the nonprofit, that lead role is that week where you are just sort of checking off everything so that when the voting post automatically opens, you're happy with all the nonprofits that are included there. And it's also why that first leader connect is so important, right? Because you can really start that conversation around what kind of organizations do we want nominated, so that during that week window, if they don't fit into that, you can remove them and let the member know clearly why they were removed. Then the ideal window for you really to host that quarterly event is in that vote on nonprofit window, because that's when people are going to be looking to get more information and inform their vote. So that's really where we suggest it. We can also, it will default to this cadence, a month being open for nominations, 2 weeks for voting, all that kind of thing. But if you say, you know what, we want nominations to be open for 2 weeks and we want voting to be open for a week, whatever it is, let me know. We can always adjust the cadence. It's just, this is the default kind of how it goes. So just kind of want to call that out there as well. And then I've kind of noted here, but as a leader, you certainly don't have to do this, but I do suggest giving reminders during that nonprofit nomination window and the voting window to your members. And you can communicate all of that either in the members tab, you can download a CSV with emails, or in the members tab, you can bulk message all of your members as well through the platform. Okay, now we're going to get a bit into the nomination process. Any questions before we get into that?
I have one quick question.
Yeah.
So before you have your first kind of that whole process that you just went through, where you nominate and actually do you tend to suggest having kind of an initial meeting to see whoever you can get on the call to just say, hey, and kind of review what you're doing right now and tell them what all of this is before you even start?
Yes, we always, yeah, that's a great question. We always suggest a meet and greet first.
Okay.
For the purpose of like simplifying this for all of you, I've kind of jumped right into the gathering grant, but we really do suggest a meet and greet first. Yeah, that's a great question, Judy. Okay, so this is the nomination. So when a member goes to nominate a nonprofit, on that sort of timeline, they will click on that nominate nonprofits box, and it will bring them into a page that looks just like this on the right-hand side. So they will be prompted to make a nomination. There's also a couple, this actually screenshot is a bit older now, but there'll be some resources as well to direct them to places they can find nonprofits. So Natalie, those are a couple of the tools that I mentioned to you. They'll actually be listed there. They will make their nomination. They can add a comment as to why they are nominating it, and then they're just going to submit the nomination. And then at the bottom, you'll see all the nominations for that quarter below, and who nominated them as well. And then during that kind of week that you have before voting opens, there'll be a little sort of like trash can in the top right-hand corner of those below boxes where you can remove any that you might need to. You'll notice in this example, they say nominated by Grapevine. For really young, early groups, we often will seed with some nominations just to get the process going. So if you see that in your group, that's why. We are just kind of trying to give people an example of what nominating looks like and how to do it. All right. So this is when I mentioned that you can go in and edit things as a leader. This is what I meant. So before the vote opens, you can edit all of those nonprofit nominations, and you'll have a week to do that. And just to be aware, if you don't make any changes, the nomination post will automatically include everything that was nominated.
Quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
When you put somebody's nomination in the trash can,
yeah,
any best practices or thoughts about how to handle that, so that you don't alienate members and things like that, or
Yeah, that's a great question, Mark. I really encourage you to, with your leadership team, and then roll it out clearly to your members, the criteria for nominations. So I know some of you are just, you're thrown in, it's rolling. So maybe that's not for the first, cycle, but for the next one, saying it has to be in this location. It can't be, some groups will say it can't be a religious institution, or they'll say all these different things, whatever it is. Because then it just really helps you, Mark. If you remove one, you can say very clearly, and you can pull the exact post where you have your criteria, and you can say it just didn't meet our criteria. And I mean, that's happened to me before with my Giving Circle. I've gotten an email where they're like, the budget that the nonprofit you nominated, the budget's too high, so it's not going to make it through. So I think it's just important that that's really a first task as leadership, is that you're deciding on what that looks like.
Kind of setting clear kind of criteria, for what we're really trying to, why you led with missions and values and all that, because it's like, who do we want to support? Exactly. What are our resources, and leverage the tool that you have there to educate people on different nonprofits in our area and how which ones fit those criteria, and we can kind of start condensing down the number, I guess, into ones we think for next year or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes, and this has happened with many of our groups, a nonprofit will be in that gray area, where people will be like, ooh, is this kind of, should we let this one go through? I just say sometimes you're going to have to reevaluate that. It's okay if one gets through and people are upset about it or whatever, because you can say, you know what, we're going to refine this for our next cycle. This is a learning thing, right? So just kind of want to call out that there could be some gray area ones. And maybe that's just geographically, it's on a line wherever it is, or what community it serves. But I do think it's just important to start that criteria, and you can always refine it later. And to your point, Mark, posting that criteria somewhere on your group's page so that you can link it to people if you remove one of their nonprofits, so they know exactly why you did that. So these are the quarterly events that I mentioned earlier. I think this is actually where the video is. Play this quickly.
Living life in color. Everything around me looks so beautiful and sweet. Heavenly desire. Everything so bright, it's like a brand new movie scene. I'll be a melody.
Okay, so that just gives you I think this was our Seattle group, but this just gives you a really quick sense of what a gathering grant is. It's a simple gathering. You've got people coming together. They booked a larger patio table. They've got name tags. People are voting. I think it was probably an hour event. So this is what a gathering grant is. It does not have to be a big thing you don't need to rent out a space for it or anything like that. It's really a moment for your group to come together. And this really is how it should look. One of the things also I wanted to call out, when you have established your first event, whether that is a meet and greet, as Jody mentioned, or maybe you have the dates you want to do your gathering grant, put that in, create an event post. As an admin, you have the ability to do that. Create that event as soon as you can, because it means that when new members join or people come to your page, they're going to see the event listed on the right-hand side, so that you can build momentum around it. People can invite people to it, all that kind of stuff, because the more people come, the bigger your group gets, the larger your impact is going to be. So one of my biggest pieces of advice is just try and get stuff in the calendar as early as you can, because your page will really act as like a bulletin board for your group, right? In all the different ways people can engage. And this is just a quick outline of what that event looks like, that Gather and Grant event. If you have a previous recipient of a grant, invite them, hear from them, like, how did they use the money, or how do they intend to use the money, or who are they? They can just share a bit more about their work in general. Then often you'll have 3 different nonprofits who are the finalists, and you'll have members present about them. It can be very simple, just 5 minutes from the heart, why they nominated them. We always say to have the members do that opposed to the nonprofit, unless of course it's one and the same, just because we try and make this really lightweight for nonprofits, and we say put it on the members to do that. And also sometimes having all the nonprofits there, because they might not all get the grant, can create a bit of a weird dynamic. So just kind of want to call out putting that on the members. Then a group discussion and a vote, and then networking. We see one of the top reasons people have joined your group is to meet people. So always say to insert some connection in your event. And then voting. So how this looks is some events or groups, they'll literally pull it up on the screen, the Grapevine platform, have people log in and vote. People will vote through the platform to the link that we will have automatically posted. Maybe you want people to leave that voting open a little bit after your gathering grant. Some groups will close it on the day of the gathering grant so that it's announced when you're all together. Totally up to you. But really you're directing people to their Grapevine account so that they can vote. So a good thing to remind people to do at your events is to bring like their login information. Some people will also in person do it a bit old school and collect raise of hand or ballots, whatever. You can do that as well and just add it on to the total. But as much as you can direct people just to use the platform, the better, because then it's all transparent and it's all logged. I know we don't have too much time, so I'll just go through a little quickly here. But this, if you haven't seen this yet, this is your guide to hosting a Gather and Grant event. It's super short. It's really helpful. I'll include it in the follow-up, but definitely want to call that out. And then these are just some helpful tips in terms of in-person or virtual events. Just some key things we've heard from some of our groups for how to foster engagement in these 2 different ways. So in person, having a name tags for people, you know, calling out on the name tags, maybe anyone who's new, that kind of thing. Virtual events, you know, they're different, you know, you have to cultivate engagement in a bit of a different way. We have a group that has voted on like a theme song for their giving circle, and then at the beginning of the Zoom, they play that theme song each time. So just little ways that you can really connect people and have these rituals together are important. Okay, I want to leave a couple minutes. I know we only have a couple minutes left for any questions or feedback. Curious as well, and this can just be by a show of hands or in the chat. Do you feel after listening to this, you have more guidance, or do you feel like there are still gaps missing in the work? And Mark, I saw you came off camera, so maybe you have a question.
No, I just wanted to, you know, not be rude. But I mean, I think, you know, overall, I mean, I feel, you know, better. I mean, there's still a lot of things that, you know, I don't even know how big our group is, who's on it. I've got the you know, list of 3 leaders, and so we haven't connected yet. So there's a lot of things still to be done, but
Yep.
ultimately, I think there's a lot of framework here for us to work with. So it seems like a lot of the stuff you've shown us is available on the site, and so you can pull it down and see it and use it. And so it's
Yep.
pretty intuitive from my perspective in that. So overall, it's good.
Awesome. Okay, and just to say, yeah, this is, you know, you're kind of thrown in with strangers to run this group. So it's gonna take, you know, it's gonna, as you're saying, Mark, you're chipping away at it. You're gonna meet with your leadership team, and then it's not gonna all happen right away, right? The goal really is coming together as leaders and then starting to organize those quarterly events for your group. So I just think the fact that you're here and thinking about this is such a great start. And you know, some of our groups that are under a year old, they have moved $50,000 to their community. So there is so much power in this model. So I think it's just about getting started, honestly. And you can always book one-on-one time with me or myself and your other leaders. I'm here as a resource for you. So I definitely want to just say thank you, everyone, for joining. I'm just going to put my email in the chat as well, so it's here if you ever kind of want to reach out. I will send a follow-up that will include all the ways you can contact me and engage in our workshops and all that kind of stuff. And also, if you have feedback on this and you don't want to share it on this call, no problem. Please send it to me. Be direct, be blunt. I want to make sure you're getting everything you need here, so please do reach out to me. And yeah, thank you so much, everyone, and thank you for being leaders. It's really, really powerful work you're doing. So just want to thank you for your time today. And have a great rest of your week. Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks, Natalie. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Great.
Thank you.
Bye, Aubrey. Bye,
Thanks.
Mark. Bye, Jody. Bye, Brian.